I will now call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the final agenda.
Thank you. Is
I'll
there a
second.
second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Our next order of business is to adopt the minutes from the October 19th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Jared. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, the motion does carry. We have two discussion items on our agenda tonight. The first item is Arboretum Convenience Commercial Development Sketch Plat. This item is for discussion and feedback purposes only. No formal action will be taken this evening. I will now turn it over to Community and Development Director Marty Dole for a staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Yes, as you mentioned, before you this evening is a sketch plat application for the Arboretum Convenience project. There are, as you can see, several members from the development team in the audience this evening that I believe would like to come up and provide some information after the staff presentation today, and I'll give them that opportunity to introduce themselves at that point in time. But before we get to that point, our staff presentation, so just a little bit of background on the project. We did receive the application for sketch plat here the last month or so. A neighborhood meeting was held on December 1st of 2021, and as you saw in your packet, some of that feedback was summarized from that neighborhood meeting. The Planning Commission will review the sketch plat this evening, and then the City Council is scheduled to review the sketch plat application at their meeting next week. So the parcel that is proposed for development is located southeast of Highway 5, just across from the Commercial Avenue intersection. You can see it highlighted on your screen. This parcel is currently zoned and guided for low-density residential, so as proposed, it would require both a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning to CBD to allow for commercial uses. The proposed uses as part of this project include a combined Hometown Bank, Mocha Monkey coffee shop with drive-throughs. In the preliminary concept, that building is shown to be 2 stories and approximately 4,700 square feet. A Ridgeview Medical Clinic office at 1 story and 8,000 square feet, expandable up to 11,000 square feet. And then a daycare center, which doesn't currently have a tenant, but is being proposed as part of this as 1 story and 10,000 square feet. This is a site rendering provided by the applicant. This image was also included in your background packet. We can come back to this as we get into our discussion later on. And then similar with the site layout map, we'll be able to come back to this image as we discuss the development. So there are a couple of items that staff has highlighted in the background packet for consideration by both the Planning Commission and the City Council as this project moves forward through those meeting bodies. So we'll try to summarize those items that staff have highlighted and some of those considerations here. The first being the proposed roundabout. So as you saw in your background packet, the applicant is proposing a roundabout to be constructed on Highway 5 at that current intersection of Commercial Avenue, which would provide a leg into their development project. The applicant has indicated that the development is not feasible without full controlled intersection on Highway 5 and Commercial Avenue. A traffic impact study was conducted, and that was included as part of your background packet. Staff did review the traffic impact study and included some of their observations in the background. Those observations being that as it is currently, the intersection of Commercial Avenue being a dead-end cul-de-sac does operate efficiently under its current conditions. This proposed development would result in an estimated 1,024 additional trips, so that is the data that was used when reviewing the impact of traffic. If developed without control, it's likely that the most significant delay at this leg would be the traffic exiting the development site, and it likely would see an increase in traffic, or excuse me, in crashes for folks trying to exit the development at an uncontrolled intersection, trying to find gaps in that traffic as they leave the development site. And then staff also notes that the roundabout likely does operate efficiently in those conditions, but is primarily to the benefit of the development traffic at this time. So just continued some of those observations. The roundabout, as we mentioned, would not be warranted absent development, as the intersection is pretty low traffic currently. The roundabout would likely slow traffic, but a true benefit to mainline traffic likely wouldn't be realized on Highway 5 until those traffic patterns increase in the next 10 to 20 years. There also is a potential benefit to downtown Victoria related to access, but likely not a true benefit of that roundabout specifically until or unless Commercial Avenue were extended through to downtown to provide a full access into downtown. And MnDOT, as was noted in your background, ultimately determines the type of access that is or isn't allowed. The applicant has been having some conversations with MnDOT related to this as well. The city can provide a recommendation one way or another, support, not support, but ultimately MnDOT determines what or how that access will be on the state highway. So a couple of the considerations for this body and for the city council is the proposed land use and density acceptable from a transportation perspective, considering the additional trips that will be generated, and does that opinion of whether or not it would or would not be acceptable change depending on whether or not a roundabout would be permitted. Does a roundabout benefit the city and downtown businesses and residents and provide an adequate return on its investment for the city? If so, is this the right location for a roundabout, and are the long-term maintenance costs that would be associated with a roundabout be acceptable? A roundabout at Commercial Avenue is not contemplated as part of the recently approved Arboretum area transportation plan. So how will that roundabout impact the traffic and other access points along Highway 5 as it hasn't been studied as part of that plan? As you saw in your background packet, MnDOT did provide some preliminary comments, including that they'd likely condition a reduction of right-in, right-out to 80th Street, which would be the street that the fire station is currently located in, although they are looking to potentially change locations in the next 4 to 5 years. And MnDOT may also condition other access points to be reduced or closed as part of potentially allowing a roundabout in that location. Concept level estimates indicate approximately $1.8 million cost for the roundabout. Staff believes that number will probably increase just based on the soils and wetland along Highway 5, as well as the required state standards for constructions of roundabout. And related to that, the applicant has indicated they're seeking funding from the city along with the state, county, and other sources for construction, but has not indicated yet at this point to what extent funding will be requested from the city for this roundabout. So after the roundabout, kind of the next highlight is the proposed site layout, so the project itself. So staff has reviewed the site layout, including the roads, drive-throughs, even with my typo with drive-through, stacking, parking, etc. Staff does believe that this layout likely could function adequately. There's adequate stacking for both coffee drive-through and for the bank. You can see in the highlights here just an idea of how traffic would circulate for the drive-throughs, the blue being the bank traffic coming through with a bypass, the green being the coffee traffic coming through this way, and then as well as the other uses on the site being able to circulate along through the parking lots. So again, staff does feel like that layout could likely function adequately. And related to that parking, staff also believes that the parking that's shown is likely adequate as well. The standard parking minimums for these types of uses would be 121 spaces. As the commission is aware, in the central business district where the site to be rezoned allows up to a 50% reduction in staff. Staff doesn't believe that a 50% reduction would be appropriate in this instance because there's no adjacent shared parking, but there's likely to be some shared parking between uses, whereas in 105 spaces could potentially be adequate for parking as well. So with that in mind, there are several concessions, however, to the city's CBD design and performance standards that are being requested as variance as part of this application. One of them related to the drive-through. So as I indicated, there is a drive-through proposed both for bank and coffee shop traffic. A drive-through is considered a conditional use in the CBD, and it has the following listed minimum requirements: that no structure, parking area, or driveway except access driveways be located within 100 feet of any portion of a residential district. So as you can see on the image highlighted here, the red is the approximate 100-foot setback from the property line. All of the property surrounding this, except for that property directly to the north, is zoned residential. The east side does have a wetland buffer. We've got the fire station here, and we've got some residential lots here. So again, by the letter of the code, they're saying there should be a 100-foot buffer from those residential property lines with a drive-through. Code also requires at least 150 feet of frontage on a public street and not less than 2 places of access to a public street. In this proposal, the interior roadway network would likely be private. And there is also just the one entrance and exit off of the development site onto the highway, although there are several access points once you're within the layout of the development. And then finally, it also requires that any parking areas related to drive-throughs have a landscaped front yard with a depth of not less than 25 feet and landscaped side yard having a depth of not less than 10 feet or a buffer. And there are currently no landscape buffers contemplated at this time with the parking. So drive-through is one of the items for consideration. The second is related to setbacks. So setbacks and buffers, there are not within code any buffers required between CBD and other land uses. CBD is exempt from a buffer requirement between zoning districts, with the exception of the drive-through buffer, which we noted. However, the CBD does require a zero front setback as part of the code. So it requires that at least 65% of the length of a front facade be at the front property line, with 35% being able to be set back 12 feet from the front of those roadways to emphasize entries or create outdoor seating and gathering areas. So as currently proposed, the layout would not meet this CBD performance standard either. So some considerations for the Planning Commission. Number one is commercial use desired on this parcel over residential use, warranting that comp plan amendment and rezoning. And if so, is this an acceptable commercial use for that property? Number two, are the proposed variances from the CBD design and performance standards acceptable? Number three, are the proposed conditional uses through CBD, the drive-through, and as well as I failed to mention, daycare is also a conditional use within the CBD. Acceptable, and if so, are there conditions that should be applied? Does the site layout and parking appear to function adequately, access, navigation for pedestrians, etc.? And will there be any traffic, noise, or light, or site light or noise impacts that may affect residential lots? And if so, are there opportunities for mitigation? The third part of this proposal is also a proposed land swap business subsidy request. This will likely be something that the City Council will delve a little bit deeper into their meeting, but did want to bring it to the attention of the Planning Commission as well. The applicant is requesting the city to consider a land swap of one of our downtown west parcels for a parcel within this development that would then be intended to be deeded to Ridgeview for their clinic site. The applicant has also indicated that they may be interested in looking at tax abatement or other such subsidies as part of the development. So some considerations related to this, again, slightly out of the purview of the Planning Commission, but just to note, will the city receive an adequate return on land swap for a medical facility and other requested subsidy? Is a medical facility a high enough priority for the community to warrant that type of subsidy? And if a subsidy is warranted, is a development parcel within downtown West an equal trade? As I noted, there was a neighborhood meeting that was held on December 1st. There were also several letters of support that have been received over the last couple of weeks that have been included as part of your background packet, so you were able to review those. We did have about 30 attendees or so at the neighborhood meeting, although we did have a large contingency from the development group as well. Some of the items that were brought up, questions that were asked, and more detail was provided in your background packet, but how will the roundabout fit within the existing right-of-way? Has MnDOT reviewed the roundabout, and how will it impact traffic? Will the roundabout need to be expanded to 2 lanes if and when Highway 5 is expanded? How will the proposed roundabout impact other business access? Some concerns about how much traffic the site will generate and how it will impact other ancillary roadways. Questions or concerns with the amount of peak traffic for the daycare and whether or not parking and circulation is adequate for that use. Some requests for landscaping buffers such as berms and trees around the project boundary. Some concern with the commercial uses and parking lot lighting, those types of things for the adjacent residential homes. And then a question about safety related to the crossing of Highway 5. Just some other considerations, and these were also included in your background packet, but I don't know that we need to get into a ton of detail this evening. There are likely some wetland impacts that would result as a part of this, so this property would be subject to the MCWD's wetland rules, and the applicant would need to work through with them on any mitigation that's needed. We would require likely concurrently with a preliminary plat, a site plan and building materials review as part of this development in the CBD. Is, Victoria's service by these types of buildings and whether or not the community is underserved by these types of uses. And then also noted in your background packet was the applicant's estimated real estate taxes and jobs that they estimate will be generated by this development. So with that, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, as I mentioned, we do have folks from the development team that have some information they'd like to share as well. So with your prerogative, we can allow them to do that before opening it up for questions and discussion.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Yeah, we look forward to the presentation.
Site plan.
Yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sean Raboyne. I'm with HTG Architects, and I have the honor of representing the entire group behind me. But really, Marty did a great job explaining the project. We did have a really good neighborhood meeting last week and went through a little bit more formal presentation. Really today, I just wanted to highlight a few things on the site and really open it up for a kind of Q&A for questions that you might have regarding any of the logistics or the layout or the reasoning behind why things are positioned. So again, looking at the layout, I know as an overall team, the group is very excited about coming to Victoria. Hometown Bank, we did a similar project for them in Waconia with Mocha Monkey. I don't know if you visited that location there off of Engler, right off of 5 in front of McAtoon's grocery store. Very similar orientation with 2 drive-ups and then just trying to generate a different vision for the financial institution along with a retail component. And that's really one of the driving forces behind this development. And one of the main reasons that we feel that that location of the bank and the coffee shop need to be closest to that access point off of Highway 5 where the roundabout is. Also with a great adjacency is Ridgeview, and we do have a representative from Ridgeview here if there are any questions later on. And then also the daycare. A lot of the positioning on the site, there are some, I would say, not issues, but just things that we're trying to stay out of. There, a lot of the, we'll call it the east side of the site is a wetland. We're still waiting for the final wetland delineation report, but that's the reasoning that a lot of the property has been pushed down, we'll just call it to the southwest on the plan. So it is kind of congested, and that's what's forcing us to impede on that 100-foot setback from the residential. Originally, when we designed, we were able to push a little bit farther east, and we were able to maintain that 100-foot setback. But knowing how much wetland there is on that east side has really forced everything to the south. We did try to provide circulation through the site so that traffic was not doing a lot of turns. So there is quite easy access in and out off of the roundabout. We were seeing a high volume. If the daycare goes in, that'll be a high volume of traffic. And so we drove that to the east side to stay away from the entrance and exit from the roundabout, so there was no backup. And then also the positions of the two drive-ups are positioned along Highway 5 so that there's no stacking back up along at the exit as well. A couple things I wanted to hit on regarding the roundabout with regards to the traffic study that we had. Even though there will be more trip generation generated with this development, what the traffic study stated was a lot of the traffic that's coming into the site is already doing a travel through Highway 5 and through Victoria. They would be making a slight detour to either drop off their kid at the daycare or picking up a cup of coffee. So a lot of that traffic is already there. They're just making that quick detour. The roundabout would also create some space for some left and right-hand turns off of Highway 5 for some of the commercial business, especially on Commercial Avenue and then also on 80th. So there would be some additional real estate because of that roundabout development. Also, a lot of the traffic coming from the east heading west at 55 miles an hour will have to slow down because of the roundabout. So it will help bring people's speed down entering into Victoria from the east, which I think is very important. And that was one of the main things that the neighborhood had was they're really concerned about the safety on Highway 5 because of the traffic flow and speed and the side streets that have to enter onto Highway 5 during peak time, especially in the morning and the evening. So I think helping reduce speed will definitely be a benefit to not only the travelers coming through, but also for the local residents. Also, the roundabout with the side streets will help reduce the delay time of the people trying to turn left or right onto Highway 5. That is also laid out in the traffic report. So that was a big thing to help increase that reduced standing time as they're making a left or right-hand turn, even during peak times. Let's see here. Also with the development, with the buildings, we're trying to create, let me take a step back, I apologize. So as a buffer, because of that 100-foot setback, we are having roughly about 16 to 17 foot high retaining wall. That will be a separation between that residential. So the residential will be quite higher. It'll be very similar to a sound barrier on a highway. So there won't be any traffic lights and or there'll be some sound, but the sound will be reflected back into the development because of that retaining wall. So if you know the site, as you probably do, the fire station is about 18 feet higher than the entrance from Highway 5 into this development right now. So we'd be somewhere between 16 to 18 feet difference in height for where the finished floor are on the three proposed structures. So there will be quite a buffer of a retaining wall. We haven't determined exactly what that retaining wall will be, if it'll be fieldstone or large cobble or a traditional retaining block wall yet. That's still to be determined, but there will be an area for that separation along with some buffering of landscape on top with a railing and along the side as well to help eliminate some of that noise deflection. There will be a sign to help welcome people coming into Victoria to take advantage of that facade as well. And then, as you can see in the rendering, we're looking to add that similar Victoria logo in the roundabout as travelers come east, heading west through Victoria. A lot of the parking and the buildings, again, were determined because of the wetland and then also the setback from Highway 5 to allow the roundabout and allow the roundabout to come into the site. That really dictated a lot of the positioning of the buildings. Again, the group is excited for the development. They're looking for your help and guidance on some of the issues that we're looking for to see if there's some acceptability in some of the variances that they were looking at, and or if there's some feedback from this group to help us move this project forward.
Very good, thank you. Is there anyone from the bank or from the medical that would like to do a presentation at this point? Excellent. Yep, just identify yourself and.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners. I'm Mike Phelps, the President and CEO of Ridgeview, not just a representative, but the representative, hopefully. As challenged as healthcare is, and getting through the day-to-day of COVID and all the things that you read in the paper, part of my job is to think about the future of our organization. And so as we've thought about Victoria and looking at its potential growth, we absolutely want to be a part of this community and believe that healthcare, as we've talked to other communities, is as important as fire and police. And so we believe there's an opportunity here to bring healthcare to your community in partnership with this unique project, and also kick off the West Side Development project that you have in your vision as well. So I'll just say that, and certainly can answer any other questions as we spend time together.
Well, is there going to be urgent care capabilities at
Yeah.
this site?
So I think as we've certainly looked at the demographics of the community in help with the city administration and management. And that's certainly something that we would look at. In fact, we were asked that question with the community last week sometime. And one of the concerns, I'm sure, was nighttime operations. So we think some kind of express care would be a great thing for this community. But ultimately, our plans are a little bit behind the development of the other two parts of this development in daycare and the bank. And we'll get into that a little bit in conversations with the city council, I'm sure, on Monday. Be happy to talk about it a little bit here too, but we're looking at more of a 3-year window for development of the clinic portion of that project. And within that time frame, we would love to do a survey of the community to understand what the community would like to have there from an access point, or from access to healthcare services.
I certainly understand the noise, but it's also the benefit, right? Because otherwise you need to go to Waconia, you need to go to
Yeah, yep,
212 or
absolutely.
whatever for emergency care.
And we're well aware that we have clinics, spread out throughout here. We have a clinic in Excelsior, which we all know is a winding curve to get to. But, it's probably 6 or 7 miles away as the crow flies. Our Chanhassen clinic is, obviously the same distance. Ridgeview does not have a primary care clinic in Waconia under the Ridgeview brand. We have a great partner in Lakeview Clinic there who serves that community for primary care. And 212 Medical Center, we only have 2 primary care physicians in that entire facility. There are other primary care organizations around. But my intuition would tell me that it's probably an express care, some OBGYN, maybe some pediatrics, and some primary care on that site. As we'd promised the community the other night, we're not going to be landing helicopters in the middle of the night on that facility. It's not a hospital-based entity. It is a clinic facility, which we do pay taxes on our clinics, by the way. So I heard there was some question about that.
So just a quick question, the construction timing. So you're saying the daycare would be constructed, the bank and the Mocha Monkey, and then your construction would be last?
We would end up with a development-ready pad as a part of this project, and then we would end up putting our clinic on there within a period of time negotiated with the city.
Okay, it just seems like it might be difficult to do the middle pad with the with the traffic from the daycare coming in and out with the 300 cars a day, and I just wondered about the middle versus,
Yeah.
the swap.
Yep.
It's interesting.
I think, we've done a number of
Done before.
8,000 square foot clinics. We kind of know, how we would get that stuff accomplished, but it's good feedback, and we can certainly take that into consideration. Other questions for me?
Very good. Any other questions for the gentleman? Is there a representative from the bank that would like to address the group?
Good evening. I'm Mike Orth with Hometown Bank. We're just really appreciative to be where we are in this process, and our desire to come and invest in Victoria is based on all of the great things that exist here. And I can't tell you how many times I've driven this road and I've gone east to west and I've looked at that hillside and I thought that would be an incredible way to welcome people into this town, to put something substantial and impressive as you enter into Victoria. So that's been something that's been on our mind for a long time. The first time that we started working on this project was October of 2014. And it's been a journey to get to this point. Our company has been around a long time, almost 100 years. We have 10 locations. We're a $525 million bank. It's not the biggest bank in the world. We're the 39th largest bank in Minnesota, though. We've been a top workplace by Star Tribune for 8 years in a row. We want to continue to expand and stay independent, and we think this is the next best opportunity for the franchise of our company. So it's a testament to all the people that live and have created Victoria. And I don't really have any other prepared comments. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. Otherwise, our CEO is here as well.
Is there any questions for this gentleman relative to the bank?
I had a question on the land swap. How does that work? Who owns what?
Do you want me to tackle that? Okay. So we're thanks. So we're not a party to that, but well, I could talk about it. The land swap. The idea is that the Downtown West project, Ridgeview's business model is not to be in that area of a municipality. They want to be on the main thoroughfare. So as a mechanism to have Ridgeview next to, within this development, would be to take one of those parcels, which the city has developed, and as part of an extension of your downtown, it would be a swap between our developer and the city would contribute that property to Ridgeview as a business subsidy. And then that property in Downtown West that our developer would own, they would construct a senior housing project. And it's in the packet. I think it's estimated to be in the $25 to $30 million range, 55 plus, maybe memory care, maybe not. That's what I think I know.
If I may, I didn't mean to leave you cold, but, and why I offered him to answer it is because the entire parcels are swapped. And then there's 3 parcels within the main parcels, and Ridgeview would enter into a business subsidy agreement with the city of Victoria to say that we would build a clinic within a period of time and operate it as a part of a contribution to Ridgeview. And we would have so many jobs at so many dollars per hour. Those are things we've done with organizations before or cities before, with Belle Plaine being an example of that. If you've driven down Highway 169 and seen the gigantic project there within the city of Victoria or Belle Plaine, that's an example of 12.1 acres that was under that arrangement. So that's how that would work. So the city would actually swap the entire parcel of Downtown West with the developer over here, and then a portion of one of those slivers essentially would be offered to Ridgeview, and we would, in exchange for that, we would develop the clinic that we have there. I'll say also, these are common things. Healthcare, as a not-for-profit healthcare organization, I'll tell you, primary care clinics are generally not profitable unless you put a lot of other ancillary services in them. They are feeders into the health system, if you will, where other profit-generating procedures are, and you hope at the end of the day you have a margin to operate. And certainly in the last couple of years have been challenging with COVID, but those are the economics of healthcare, and that's why building a primary care clinic in a community like this or any other community that we've entered into, we look for support from the community, given that our understanding and in being in 14 other communities with clinics is that this is an important service for the community. We hope that you feel that way. It would be great to hear what you believe should be in the community, because we believe healthcare's something that can help a community grow and help it be a destination point, and we've seen that in other places we've been. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
I know we're not talking about programming, but is a pharmacy part of the plan for this?
I've been reading Facebook too, so we don't operate retail pharmacy.
Okay.
We have retail pharmacy partners. Unfortunately, in the healthcare environment, you see fewer and fewer of those mom and pop pharmacies being willing that can stay in business and compete with the Walgreens and CVS's of the world. And even if you've read, CVS is shutting down, I don't know how many thousands of their pharmacies just because they can do other things more efficiently. And certainly they must be making a profit on other things. So you know, we could look at helping to find a pharmacy partner if that was an interest from the community. But I can tell you that those organizations have become fewer and further between in terms of organizations that run them independently, that work in arrangements like this. Our Belle Plaine Clinic, we did have a pharmacy there, or do have a pharmacy there currently, but I do know the owners are looking to sell because they're running on a shoestring, so. But great question.
What's the Facebook reference? I'm not a Facebooker.
Oh, I think there are a couple people on the Victoria site that had offered up that same comment as to, how about a pharmacy? And so, and that, you know, Ridgeview has pharmacy partnerships in different clinics, so maybe they could bring that. So, sorry, I thought that was where I was coming from, but you obviously
No, I
expected.
got
Yeah.
kids, but
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Sean?
Apologize. I just wanted to make one note that with the businesses, the timetable of opening and closing, I know the coffee shop would be open at 5:30, but then most businesses will be closed by 7 o'clock at night. So there won't be a lot of traffic generating after hours and making noise late into the evening. So I just wanted to lift that last thing there. Yes.
The roundabout versus a traffic light, maybe you could just expand on that.
Well, I'm not a traffic engineer or expert, but I do know what the traffic, looking at the roundabout compared to the traffic light, the roundabout does allow traffic to continue to flow. And with the stoplight, obviously, as you know, because on my way here coming down Highway 5, there's several stoplights as you work your way through Chan. It does allow for a backup. So in the traffic report, they were talking about that the delay for traffic coming out of the development would be tremendous compared to the roundabout where traffic could flow pretty easily. But again, we'd have to have the traffic engineer come and really talk a little bit more intelligent
What about
about
the
it.
fire department, because obviously they can control.
Yeah, the
a
EMT.
traffic light,
Yeah.
they can't really control a roundabout, so I didn't know what maybe their thoughts were on that.
Yeah, no, and we still need to engage the fire department once this moves a little bit further, so that is still a conversation yet to be had. So, thank you.
So how far along in the process with the roundabout? What's the approval probabilities?
Right
on a
now, we're
roundabout?
still waiting for MnDOT comments, so we've gotten some preliminary comments. We haven't received any official feedback yet, so we're still waiting for that.
What's the unofficial view as a developer? How would you characterize it?
Heard specifically? Because they haven't said anything yet.
Very little.
No, they haven't come back and really, as a roundabout, I think what's most important for the development is they have to have access in and out. And just the roundabout allows for traffic to flow continuously. Obviously, with the stoplight, you're stopped. And then it would allow traffic to back up into the development. So we're hoping that we can continue that roundabout so that we can get traffic in and out pretty easily as they continue on their journey, as they're doing their thoroughfare through Victoria.
But the project itself is truly contingent upon a roundabout occurring.
It has to have some type of controlled intersection. If there's no controlled intersection, there would be a real struggle for traffic to get out of the development.
Yep.
Especially with the volume that you're looking at with the daycare and or the coffee shop.
Very good.
And the need for the daycare, is that high? I mean, there's plenty of daycares in Chan, and there's actually one kind of out by the Dairy Queen.
I think there's some home daycare too that weren't addressed in the memo that are not addressed in the numbers because we do have quite a few home daycares here in Victoria.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Mark Krogh, Java Companies. I've been working with the daycares, and we have 3 interested parties, and the demographics are amazing. They keep growing in Victoria. So we don't have a shortage of users, and I think within next month we'll have our final user picked out for daycare. But the west side of Twin Cities, and as people will start working more remotely, cities like Victoria are going to continue to grow, and that's kind of what they're seeing is the future growth. So we don't have a shortage of interest right now, but we will settle on somebody here next month.
I think you're right. In the past, we used to drive to work, so we would drive our kids to Chanhassen, or we would drive our kids to further locations and not mind so much. But if you're working from home, the last thing you want to do is get out in the snow to drop off your kid.
Yeah.
I will say.
110%. You know,
I do think that's a good point.
some good things have come out of this whole COVID event. So, I mean, we have other projects in, you know, smaller cities such as Ramsey. You know, people, they're starting to grow and they're seeing a lot of need because people are willing to, you know, maybe they got to go in the office 1 day a week or 2 days a week. But I think traffic patterns are going to change to some extent. And cities like Victoria are really going to benefit from it, in our opinion.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the group?
I guess my one question, and then probably goes more even to Marty and Isaac, but, you know, this was zoned residential. Why was it never part of the CBD to begin with? You know, you weren't here for the 2040 plan, so you can't really answer the question 100%, but what was the future plan for this with, I guess, from the city side, you know, with the fire department going where it went? I mean, it kind of landlocked this parcel. And in essence, if this intersection doesn't happen, or it's going to happen somewhere, in my opinion, because otherwise the land is just green space.
Commissioner Kuhn, chair, members of the commission, as you mentioned, neither Isaac nor I were privy to the 2040 comp plan as that was approved prior to our arrival. You know, but we can speculate, you know, obviously access to this parcel is a challenge, and access may have been part of the conversations that went into that can that parcel support access for a commercial use? At the end of the day, if MnDOT would need to grant an access, they cannot leave it landlocked, but MnDOT can determine to what extent that access is. They could say it's going to be right in, right out only, which obviously is not feasible or doesn't work for commercial type use. So that's conjecture that access is part of that, but it is included in the comp plan as low density residential and is currently zoned for low density residential.
So another use would be like you couldn't even put an apartment complex in there.
You wouldn't necessarily be able to put a high density apartment complex in there. You could potentially put some other like care facility type uses, which are permitted uses in R1. So there are some other principal uses in an R1 zone district or low density district.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners?
I just have a quick question for Marty. Did you have Kara, the city's engineer, do an assessment of this section of Highway 5? If I remember the reconstruction, there was a considerable amount of organic matter that was in this section, I think in this section, and then I believe that many blocks of styrofoam were brought in to replace the organic matter. Is that adjacent to this site? How far away is that? Do we have any idea what the construction of a large project like a roundabout to tear up all that land versus perhaps the offsetting signal just to control the access?
Yeah, Commissioner Vansky, chair member of the commission, you're actually in luck. We do have Kara here. She's hiding back in the overflow area.
Yes. I want to call her to the stage.
Good evening, Chair, members of the commission. I believe I heard the question. So you were referencing the reconstruction of Highway 5 in this general area. It was reconstructed back in 2012, I think it was, and you are correct. There was considerable soil challenges in this area. So the road from just really somewhere near the south end of the proposed roundabout, and I'm not exactly sure where those limits are, all the way through the intersection of 78th Street. The road is built with geofoam. So those, you remember, there was those big stack of white styrofoam in the area. So that's one of the things that MnDOT flagged in their early initial comments, is just concern with the construction costs associated with having to expand the roadway in any amount in this area, that could be expensive.
And do we have a sense that those expenses may be knocked down by the use of the signal structure versus a roundabout?
So the challenge will come with widening the road in any direction. So, and that would be the same even for turn lanes. So just any sort of road widening. They only corrected the soils within the exact roadway footprint. So if you recall, a couple of years ago, they had to shut the road down again on the shoulders because the side of the road was still settling. For those of you who've lived here a long time, that section of road settled every year to the point that there was an absurd amount of asphalt. There was a contest in 2011 to guess how much asphalt was actually in that section because the correction was to just come and pave another layer of asphalt. So they did have to go back and do some additional correction on the side slope. So, you know, depending on the construction limits, that would be a challenge which would drive up the cost.
What would be solutions to allow for additional lanes with that roundabout? What does that look like?
It would be the same thing. You would need to investigate the underlying soil conditions to determine what sort of roadway construction would be needed in the area. So that would be due diligence that would happen in advance of any project that would occur on the highway.
I know the fire department is on hold and that's going to be taken care of later. There's also a water treatment plant there. From going through that, isn't there another tank or a lot of pipes and things that kind of run through there, or would that have to be reconfigured?
So this proposed project doesn't show any construction onto the treatment plant fire station property. Certainly the retaining wall design would need to be evaluated in such a way that it isn't affecting that tank. There is a 650,000 gallon water storage facility. So when you look at an aerial, you'll see a lot of green space, but there's actually infrastructure underneath all of that. So that would be the only thing would be relative to the retaining wall at that height if they needed any tiebacks or things of that nature.
Okay, that was just another concern. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll go back in my corner.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the development?
Are we done with questions?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm done with questions. I was just
okay.
confirming that we were done with
Okay.
questions.
Yep. No, well,
Okay.
there is, certainly with the packet, there is complexities. And, in my review of the whole project, there's a bulk of the complexities have a solution. I think step number one is the roundabout and dealing with MnDOT, and of course the time frame for that to happen. And my observation is that MnDOT doesn't necessarily they move at their own pace at the same time. So I think some of the groundwater, some of the swamps, so to speak, that's an issue that will have to be dealt with. And I guess the good thing is that we're at the point of both from the Planning Commission and then from the City Council to provide guidance, to ask the questions, to determine do we think it's feasible? Does this group of people, does the City of Victoria think that it is feasible at the same time? And I think it's a matter of, probably like most projects, it's just truly a matter of solving the problems. The problems that arise, or the problems that are there. So, any other comments from the group on the development? Marty, do you have?
I do.
Sure.
So, my name is Ann Traxler, and I do work at Hometown Bank for 8 years. I opened the Waconia one with Mike Orth here. But most importantly, I've been a resident of Victoria for 29 years. And I love Deer Run. I love all the walking paths and the biking paths. I love our downtown. I love Holy Family Catholic. We were fortunate enough to send our kids there. It's so many great things about this city. But I had to drive my kids to a clinic all the time, to Waconia or Chaska or Chanhassen. And today, I have to drive myself to a clinic still. And it would be so great to have a medical clinic in this town. I think it'd be awesome. Also with daycare, I had to drive my kids to Excelsior, to their daycare. We only have one today. We had none then, back 29 years ago. So it would just be nice to have options for our people in our town. And I think that those are great ads. And I think it's exciting. And what you say, John, is right. There's solutions for everything. We just got to get at it. So
Yeah.
that's just my only comment.
Very good. Yeah, well, I think and not to compliment Larkin Hoffman, quite frankly, but, they identified the issues that would have to be resolved, and the overall proposal. And I think they did a very detailed study on that at the same time too. So, we are here to make things happen. We're certainly not here to get in the way of progress, and, certainly progress begets progress at the same time. And that's our objective. We function within the framework of what we have to work with. So I would encourage any other questions to, any concerns.
I don't have any other concerns. I think this is a positive for the city of Victoria. So I'd like to know. I'm curious if there was any other sites that would have been, it wouldn't necessitate the roundabout, because we don't necessarily control that. If I could approve roundabouts, I'd have them in several other spots around town. And maybe we can get some of the federal money coming in to help pay for them. But with any other locations that were worth considering, or is this particular property, because of all of its issues, become the most cost-effective and the best one for access?
Commissioners and Chair, I believe the site was selected because of the sight lines and just they want to create something special as you enter Victoria. That's really why this development is where it is. I know Mike has fell in love with this hillside. Like he said, we've been talking about it since 14. So I started doing preliminary sketches back then. But yeah, I really think they create something special for the city of Victoria as you come through from east to west. And that's really where, and that hillside just is yelling for it. So that's really why this, again, I think the roundabout has just come out because of that site is pretty spectacular. And that's why they chose that. There really isn't another large site to support the three businesses that they're trying to do, because there is a lot of synergy between these businesses and traffic flow. So that's really the reason we're trying to create that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for the question. So from Ridgeview's perspective, we have a number of clinics. We like to build, in fact, we have built on almost every main east-west thoroughfare through the communities that we're in, starting up north on Highway 12 in Delano, in Excelsior on Highway 7, obviously Waconia on Highway 5, and hopefully Victoria on Highway 5. Highway 212, we're Chaska, Highway 169 in Belle Plaine. Those main thoroughfares with the sight lines that Sean mentioned are what we like to be on. So as you look at Highway 5 coming through Victoria, there just aren't a lot of sites that really made sense for Ridgeview. And so, this is the prime rib, and we'd love to be on it. And hopefully, we can have some collaboration here where we go to MnDOT together. And we've got lots of other supporters legislatively. We've met with Deed and other folks. So I think we have a lot of momentum. And Minnesota's never had a larger surplus than it has today, and a lot more money coming in. So maybe we go together and figure out how to get something funded and get this to happen. So I'll leave with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's all of the people that have a vested interest in it. And all of those, and of course, the city is one of those that have a vested interest in making things happen. The, in my notes, and one of the questions, compliments of Marty was, is this the correct location? It's the one that's available. It is available. I don't know what else is available within the city at the same time that would be appropriate for that, but that's part of the formula at the same time too. So, any other concerns?
Yes, I've got a few. So in looking at this site plan, I'd like to understand why the bank and the drive-through need to be so close to the access point. Access is my number one concern about this site plan. The zoning, the rezone is a very big concern of mine as well. To rezone to CBD zoning reduces your parking count by half. As a resident, I think about this site long-term. I don't just think about it right now, today. Our CBD today struggles with parking. It does, because we've packed in so much development, and it's a challenge, and I want to ensure that we don't have a problem here. Yes, maybe, you're going to say to me, well, these uses work just fine today. Well, once we rezoned, this zone stays in place. Let's just say hypothetically the daycare changes to a different use. We have a problem. They're going to have a higher dense parking requirement. We are going to have a problem. So, my opinion, while it's probably not popular, I don't like 3 buildings on this site. I like 2. I would much rather see 2 buildings and push further to the east. That is my initial thought about the plan. I do think that the drive-through complicates the site. I don't love it. While yes, coffee is great and people love coffee, it complicates the site. When you have the drive-through lines crossing over, it creates a bottleneck when people are trying to get out. I have concerns about that. This is an example, and maybe it's not applicable, but it's always a concern of mine when I see a drive-through coffee shop. I think about the Starbucks on Highway 5. That project at Highway 5, I'm trying to recall the crossroad, it's right by McDonald's. It ruined that project. It ruined it. I mean, there was a dentist there was a restaurant there. It's been empty and unoccupied for a long time. And they can't lease that building because the Starbucks eats up all the parking. It's a big problem. So those are some issues initially. Let's see. I want to ask a question about the fire station. I mean, if we're going to think about this site long-term, because land is scarce in Victoria, why would we plan this now when this whole site could be redone with the fire station redeveloped? So that's another thing in the back of my mind I'm asking. 1,024 additional trips. That's a lot. Yeah, you're on Highway 5. There's a lot of traffic counts, vehicles traveling on 5. The 1,024 additional trips, is that coming from all the way, how far east is that we collecting that data from?
Commissioner Moore, Chair, members of the commission. So with the traffic impact study, what's happening is they're saying we're having these land uses and we expect this much volume to result from the land uses. So they're not necessarily identifying where it's coming from. It sounds like there's some indication that it's mainline traffic that's already coming. But what it's showing is there will be 1,024 additional trips coming from the south leg of the intersection if the development occurs.
With today's counts?
Correct. So based on what the traffic is and what the land use that's being proposed is.
Okay.
Commissioner Moore, just before you jump in, I just wanted to make one clarification related to the fire station. It's highly unlikely that that parcel will ever actually redevelop because of the water treatment facility that's connected there. So while the fire station may not be a use, it will likely be some sort of municipal use there just because of the infrastructure and investment of the water treatment facility. So just wanted to.
Can you drive over that? Does that allow weight to be
Over that water tank?
over the, yeah, no.
No, yeah, and we had explored potential other access options, and is there a way to be able to provide access off of 80th Street through that area? And it doesn't appear to be feasible because of that underground infrastructure.
Okay. I think I've covered, I'm curious, Cabin Fever, that property owner, have they voiced their opinions on this project?
Commissioner Moore, members of the commission, yes, Jeff was present at the neighborhood meeting. He did ask the question about what this does to impact to his access point. We don't know the answer to that. It really depends on, if a roundabout is to be permitted, what other conditions are required by MnDOT to do that. But he did attend the neighborhood meeting and ask that question, and we don't know the answer to that at this point in time.
Okay. Lastly, I would, while this is not popular, I would prefer a completely different use. I would prefer senior housing on this site. It would have a less impact, less safety concerns. Maybe, and honestly, the roundabout, initially I was kind of concerned about it, but I like it now. I think it actually could create more safety. I am worried about the cost impact, but I'm less worried about the roundabout. So that's my overall concerns.
Very good. Thank you, Laura. From the development group.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yep, just identify yourself.
Yeah. So my name is John Schmidt. I own the Mocha Monkey Coffee Shops. And so this project has been something that Mike said we've been talking about since 2014. Just quick backstory. I took over that downtown store when I was like 21, right out of college, really knew nothing. And then Mike approached me about opening this bank location that we've done with the drive-through, and it was like I pulled out of the project like 3 or 4 times because I was so nervous about like the investment that we were making. But it turned out to be one of the best things that we've ever done, both for myself, my family, my company, the community. And then we've also opened one in St. Bonnie since then. And I guess I just wanted to say that I kind of took a step back after we opened our 3rd location and was like, I don't want to open anymore. We probably get at least a message once a month about, can you bring a Mocha Monkey to Delano? Can you bring one to, Ridgeview asked us to go to Belle Plaine. They're still asking us to go to Belle Plaine. And I've said no every time. And then whenever Mike and I talk about this potential project, it's like, if Mocha Monkey's going to go anywhere, it's going to be this project. That's about it. So I guess I just wanted to by no means I'm not like saying we need to do this. It's if we don't open it in here, that's fine. I just think that it's so similar to the Waconia community and the Hometown Bank location that we have there with how it works for the drive-through, and it just works so well. And I get comments so often from people how they love that location, and they have the ability to shop local while also having the convenience of a drive-through, which I think is really unique. Most of the time, if you want to go through drive-through, it has to be a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts or a Caribou or some big chain. But for us, we were able to compete with the Caribou that came in and the Starbucks that's right across the street by having a drive-through. And that's a big reason why we picked this site, is because I said I won't do it without a drive-through. Mike has looked at, we could buy this spot and we could buy it. It's like the drive-through's got to work for us too. So anyway, I guess and the parking, just to address the parking concern, we have our like Hometown Bank Mocha Monkey shop right now with the parking, so we know like how much parking we take up with that. So I'm assuming that we could put that into this current plan. And then, Ridgeview has their own parking, daycare has their own parking. So I don't foresee that would be any issue. We've never had any issues with that parking at the Hometown Bank location now. So yeah, so I appreciate you guys like taking a look at this. It's been really fun to think about opening a new store. We haven't opened a new store in like 5 years. And so, we did 3 like pretty quick in the first 5 years, but now it's fun to think about a new one. So appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. One of the other things that I had in my notes is that the fire station has a meeting room, and I'm part of a number of different groups, and HOA is one of them. And the fire hall is no longer available. At any rate, I've been at the boardroom at the hometown bank for a number of meetings, and is that part of the concept to rent that out for groups?
Mike Orth again, and thank you. That's a good question. We did too few in Waconia. It's very popular. There's a lack of meeting spaces, it seems, in a lot of the communities that we're in. So we would do a minimum of 3 conference rooms, and you don't rent it out at the bank. It's available. You sign up for it online. You can use it whenever you want for free. So we do at least 3 with this type of use. Because we have the church groups and the book studies and all those things gather within our business, and that's pretty cool. They end up being really good customers of his and ours.
Excellent.
Your hours would have to be bank hours, though, right?
Yeah, so if you haven't been in our bank in Waconia, we have partitioned glass sliding walls. They close off the bank when Mocha Monkey's open and the bank is closed. So we're open, not the hours that they are. We're more standard, 6:30 to, or excuse me, like 7 to 6 in the drive-through and 8 to 5 in the lobby.
I was just thinking of the conference room availability.
Yeah, so the way that the Waconia location works is that it's actually built into the common area, so we don't have to be open for other people to use it.
Okay.
It's
I've been in your building. I go to the legacy benefit people there. So
Yeah.
I've seen the Mocha Monday, I've seen the bank. I just wasn't observant enough to understand that. Because I think maybe there's a title company in there too.
Yep.
And I can attest there's no problem parking. I've been there.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. Anything else?
I think I have just a couple of questions, and maybe this is more directed at staff. Do we have, I didn't, it wasn't clear, so maybe I just didn't see it. Do we have a total of how much the city is being asked to contribute to this? And then what is our payback period in time to be able to recover those costs, and including the land swap, so that we have a financial picture of what is being asked from the city to be contributed? Then separately, and more towards Commissioner Pedersen's heart, I'm struggling to see where this proposed plan connects trail-wise to the neighborhood that is to the south of Highway 5, along where the fire station is. That housing is now seemingly turning over, and a lot of younger couples are starting to move in, and at least they might want to take their children to a coffee shop for a Saturday morning. They may, say that this is a safer alternative for me than crossing Highway 5. So I'd be curious to see how that's going to connect, and if it isn't, what should we should propose a way to have connectivity to those trails. And then lastly, what I've seen here in this packet is all in on the roundabout. This is the option that's being presented. I think in the spirit of fairness and transparency, it would be a good idea to see what an alternative to a roundabout would look like in terms of rendering and access points. And then lastly, I think my big concern is if MnDOT says that 80th Street is, right turn in, right turn out, I think we really need to figure out a way to overcome that. We can't have a fire department have public safety be held up by access of being able to get that equipment in and out of that fire station. We are blessed to have Jim with us tonight. He was one of the principal architects of how that fire station combined with the water treatment plant. I've told him before, I'll say it again so publicly, it was a brilliant idea. We want to see that resource to the community be dwindled by change.
Commissioner Vansky, Chair, members of the commission, I will try to address, I think I've got your questions down. If I not answering them correctly, let me know. First question, no, we don't know what that total contribution is yet. There are preliminary estimates for what the roundabout will cost. Applicant has indicated that they will be seeking contribution from the city to fund a portion of that roundabout. We do not know what that number will be yet. We also have not gotten into a point of any tax abatement analysis and what those financial pieces would be. Those would likely be the next steps of analysis if the sketch plats received favorably by the Planning Commission and the City Council, and of course, having that data available before any approvals were made. But we do not have a estimated contribution related to the land swap downtown west. The applicant in their narrative had estimated approximately a $600,000 value to the downtown west parcel. I think just generally based on some of the conversations we've had with Kraus Anderson on that first phase of development, their staff believes that might be a little bit undervalued, but again, we'd likely need to do a appraisal of that property if we were to get to that point of really negotiating a land swap. So no, we do not have those numbers. I think right now we're just kind of speaking in concept. Is this something that the city wishes to pursue and try to continue to figure out? Connection to trail, I think, is a big one. I think that staff will likely want to see some sort of connection made to the adjacent trails. We haven't gotten into that level of detail on this concept, but it's certainly something that would be part of the site plan and building materials review, is to really get into the detail like we typically do with preliminary plats for residential development on those connections and pedestrian access and those types of things. So it's certainly on the list that we'd want to require some trail access. 80th Street, I think that currently the fire chief would likely agree that they would not be supportive of a right-in, right-out only, as long as the fire station were still using their facility there. As has been presented to the city council previously, the fire station is working through a potential locating for a new fire station in the future, which would then, in theory, convert the fire station at this location into a public works facility with the water or a public works satellite area. So there is potential that timing works out where by the time a roundabout is built, the fire station is no longer serving out of that location specifically. But again, that's a big unknown at this time. And I think the fire chief would agree that they wouldn't be supportive of right in, right out if their operation is still there. And then lastly, alternatives to access. As I mentioned, I think staff had looked at locally on local roads. We've tried to vet out, are there other options to get through on local streets to be able to access the site, and there just doesn't seem to be a good location. And ultimately, whether or not that alternative is a roundabout or a signal, or MnDOT says, no, it's right in, right out, that's all we're gonna give you. It's kind of up to MnDOT to determine what they think is potentially feasible and what they'll request to be studied for potential access points. I just know in general, MnDOT seems to prefer roundabouts on this corridor to signals, but that access and what that access should be in those alternatives is typically driven by MnDOT. I think, did that address your questions?
I think in large measure, thank you, Mark.
What's that? I'm sorry.
It did in large measure, thank you.
Oh.
Very good. Mr. Paulson, do you have anything that you would want to address the group with?
I'm here till they're starting over.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Last opportunity. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, Chair, I think there are just a couple of things that we would be seeking, again, and this is all concept level, but some things that we'd be seeking some direction on from this group, so we can provide that feedback to the city council. I think we've heard some varying degree, and while there may be some folks, it seems like a majority of the council or commission would be potentially in favor of looking at rezoning this parcel to commercial. Is that an accurate?
Yes.
I'm seeing one head shake no, I'm seeing one head shake yes. I'm seeing yeses, so just knowing there's some conflicting, but a majority of the commission would be at least in favor of exploring that. Another piece of just looking from the planning commission is the concessions to the CBD regulations and design standards and thoughts on that. So if this project does move forward, we've got direction to work with the applicant on what the planning commission would want to see, if anything, differently related to that.
Can it be rezoned to something other than CBD?
Potentially, yes. Right now, CBD is our only commercial district. There will obviously be a different commercial zoning district that will need to come into play at some point with the South Growth area. So there's a potential to look at a new commercial zoning district that may not work well with the timing that is being looked at for development, because to create that new district might be a slow process, but as we said, every issue has potential solutions, so. No additional feedback on the CBD stuff?
I kind of agree with Lori's comment about long-term future use. You know, we have parking issues where we're at. You're putting this out on an island by itself, away from any other future parking. If the daycare goes away and something else goes in there, or, you know, you try to find a use for future use, and you need more parking spaces, you're limited on parking. And we're constantly talking on parking. I know it meets some of the standards, but, you know, some of the barriers, I think, you know, they should do some sort of landscaping barrier along with the retaining wall for the neighbors. It's going to have some sort of parking lighting out there just for security reasons. They're open all night. I mean, you're going to have some sort of lights in the parking lot. Just, in my opinion, either building lights or something, so people aren't causing trouble out, you know, hanging in the parking lot. I don't know. I don't know what other use would be for this, but we'd have to look at the variances some more.
So just, and again, just
That's
to
a good
make sure I'm getting the gist of what the commission is looking at currently as proposed with some of those requests for variance to CBD, at least at this stage, seems like they could be acceptable. Is that and obviously we will do a more thorough site plan and building materials review, but I'm getting from a majority of the commission that it seems to be an acceptable direction.
Complexities to be worked out is how I would view it.
Okay, that's helpful.
Not the largest of complexities,
Yeah.
but complexity nonetheless, so. Yeah, I think we're genuinely or generally in agreement that we're, the variances we can live with, and we'll get that figured out.
I don't know how to answer the question because I don't like the site plan. So there's that.
Yep. Honesty is the only policy.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one thing, you know, I think we're conditioned in Victoria to worry a lot about parking because of our downtown district's parking issues, and we hear it so often. And at first, when I saw the site plan, I was like thinking about parking, but then I also realized this isn't going to be downtown. It's not going to be as convenient to come to the amphitheater or to come to the restaurants. Like, I don't think it's going to have the same stressors on parking that we might have by the trail here and in the downtown district. And if you think about like next use, so I kind of think about, yep, what if a daycare doesn't go there? Well, like most tenants self-select whether to be there or not based on parking because they have their own parking requirements. So if I was going to build a restaurant there, I'd be like, nope, can't build a restaurant there. You know, I would self-select out of that from a commercial like standpoint. So I'm a little less concerned about that factor. I would say, I think it's fine as far as the variances, from my opinion. The one thing that I'm concerned about is the cost to Victoria. I'm just going to be real candid because that's the only way I know to be. I think Victoria is an amazing place, and I think Ridgeview needs to be here. And I don't know that we have to give land and land swap to get you here, to be honest. I think it makes sense for you to be here. I drive to Ridgeview clinics, you know, for my kids, for me, and I don't mind the 6-mile drive. It's not that big of a deal. So I don't know, but I know that this would benefit Victoria. But I don't know if you took a resident of Victoria and said, Ridgeview Clinic or a grocery store, where we'd land. Because all I hear is grocery store, pharmacy, retail. Give me some retail. Give us some place to go to. And then I see this developing ahead of our CBD West. And I think that people are going to have some opinions about that because people want more downtown, and they see as that might develop that we'd get parking as a part of that. So I think we just want to kind of think about that a little bit. That's the thing that kind of struggle for me. So if we're contributing on a roundabout, unless we can find other funds for that, and we're doing, you know, giving the land a subsidy, and then we're giving this land, which is very valuable, in my opinion, to a senior living community. And to be honest, senior living can afford to pay for that land. I know the pro formas for that, and we'd be fine. So I think, you know, we just want to be really careful about how we use Victoria's resources. And I think that, you know, when I first look at this, I'm like, yes, I want Mocha Monkey. I like coffee. Yes, I want a bank. Yes, I want, you know, the daycare I think would benefit others. My kids are too old, but maybe they'd work there. I don't know, you know, but I see those things and I think, yep, all good for Victoria. And I do think this is okay for CBD, but I don't know about the cost of Victoria. That would be my holdup on all of it.
Sure.
Commissioners, Chair again, sorry, Sean. So with that wetland that's to the east, that's really dictating our reduction in parking. And then when we met with Marty and Isaac, they also recommended that we had more parking shown on the site. And we actually took away, Fatima, how many stalls did we take away? Like 20? Yeah. We had 20 additional stalls on the site from their recommendation that we took off, just to be open and fair, that we showed on the site earlier. Depending on what that wetland and what the Minnehaha watershed allows us to do, if we can push that building to the east a little bit more, we can provide more parking. It's just right now we don't know what that wetland is giving us, so that's really dictating our parking count right now. So just to be fair, if we can do more and do some swapping of land for the wetland area, then we can provide more parking for that daycare area. Because there was some good feedback from a daycare provider that came to the neighborhood meeting. Again, I'm not a daycare expert. We're just showing a very high-level picture and overall concept of what could go there. Once Mark has a user, we would sit down with them and actually develop how that layout would work, you know, to perfection. But again, there could be more parking added, just depending on that wetland. So I just wanted to share that.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm assuming there'd be fencing all along that eastern, yeah.
And they need exterior space for a number of kids.
Yeah, there's an outdoor play area. Yeah. You can't see it on the rendering, but it's behind there to the east.
Yeah, I think one of the other things is the one of the other advantages, certainly with the roundabout, is the continuity with the businesses on the north side of 5. And it would, there would be some traffic movement from the downtown area and those businesses from the other bank at the same time from that area. So, anything else?
You know, I just have a quick question and thought. So, you know, Hy-Vee in Chaska, they said they were coming to Chaska. They're not in Chaska. Anyone notice they're not in Chaska? They said they were coming. They said they were coming, and they bought the land. They own it. There's no plans in the city of Chaska for that to be developed. So, you know, if this has legs, there has to be some kind of requirement that a building is under construction at a certain timeline. Has to be, or else there has to be some kind of language that there's a major penalty or the land has to be sold back to the city or something. So that's a concern of mine.
That's a legitimate concern. Very good. Yep, no problem. Anything else? Kind of so were all of your issues that,
Yeah, Chair, members of the commission, I think the most relevant issues for the planning commission to weigh in, and I think we've got some good direction. Obviously, knowing there's not 100% agreement, but I think with the majority of the commission, we've got some good direction. A lot of the things, as I mentioned in the presentation, related to the costs will be more of the prerogative of the city council to discuss. So I think from the staff point, we're good with the feedback.
very good, thank you. And again, from the development group, is there anything that your last opportunity with the planning commission at this particular point, that'll certainly be an ongoing dialogue, but is there anything else that you would like to address to the planning commission? Hearing none. Commissioners, any other thoughts that you would like to have discussed or debated at the same time? Hearing none. Hearing no other discussion on the issue, I'll close this item at this point.
Excellent.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our, the second item on the agenda is residential zoning districts discussion. And this is an ongoing discussion, and an ongoing discussion that will continue for some time because there's a huge amount of material to go over. So Marty, why don't you go ahead?
And Chair, I will just, as I mentioned when I sent out the agenda packet, there is a lot of information related to even just this first phase, talking about land use, and anticipating that this first item would be going long. If the commission would like to table this item to a future meeting when this can be the sole focus of the meeting, staff would not have an issue with that. We don't have any specific deadline for this. So again, we're happy to push through it. We've got a lot of information as well, but we'll give that up to the planning commission to determine if you'd like to move forward or table it to the future meeting.
I would like that from my standpoint, just again, for the continuity of the whole thing. So here's our concentration, and we're not distracted with anything else. This is stuff we have to get accomplished, and sooner rather than later. And so that's, what's the thoughts on it?
I agree. I'd rather concentrate here. We're already an hour and a half in. I don't know how long this takes. It's probably multiple sessions.
Yeah, well, and just kind of as a synopsis, Chair, members of the commission, what we're planning on doing is trying to make this more digestible, even those digestible chunks you might choke on. But what this next round will be specifically just on land use. We're gonna try to keep bulk regulations out of it for the first go around, and let's talk about the uses that we wanna see. Once we've kind of determined uses, then we bring in the regulations that tie to those uses. But I had anticipated with Isaac, I said I would guess the first item would go 90 minutes, which I was darn close. And I think this item probably is an hour to 90-minute item as well.
Or more.
Or more.
Are there things on our agenda already for the 21st, or is it clear?
We do have a variance, Commissioner Murray, members of the commission, we've got a variance application on the agenda. I don't think it's a long item, but we do have that item on the agenda for the next meeting.
Based on the packet, does anybody, after reviewing the packet, does anybody have any feedback to give to Isaac or Marty, that just off the top, that, you know, he would want, you know, I guess after reviewing the packet of information, do we have anything that jumps out that says, okay, we want more detail on this, or this?
Yeah,
I
Commissioner.
don't personally, but I'm just asking if for some reason somebody has something that,
Marty hinted that we may only cover the first item. I didn't really focus on that, you realize.
I would make a motion to table the discussion for the purposes of having Marty be able to present his information and not feel like it's being rushed. And we give him the due consideration of his time for preparing it to educate us and get our feedback.
Is that a formal motion?
I think that can be.
I would second that motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
You know, I gotta say, I'm still confused with R1 and R2. I read it so many times, and I was trying to make heads and tails of it. And I know you're trying to essentially get rid of R2, right? And I'm just struggling with like how it's done. I don't know. Maybe I was just overwhelmed by all that.
Commissioner Moore, Chair, members of the commission, I promise it will make at least 10% more sense when I present it. I can't promise you more than that, but I can promise you it'll make at least 10% more sense.
Okay.
Very good. So moving on to miscellaneous section. So I have a couple of miscellaneous items. One of which is the 3 Christmas trees, or the 3 evergreens that are brightly decorated at Bavaria and 5. And that is the result of the homeowners association that I'm in the Twin Home Association. So we've had an awful lot of comments, had a whole bunch of people commented last night about the, did the city do that? And so it was done, these trees are growing very rapidly. And it was done by a few of us. And it just kind of became the trees needed more equipment than we had in the garage. So it's now an HOA project, so.
They look nice, thank you.
Very, very good, thank you. I was looking for a compliment on that. The city council meetings, we haven't been together for about a month and a half. Is there any one that attended a meeting? I did, and I have some stuff, but is there anyone else?
Yes, I attended the one that was after the work session day. It was extremely brief, and I'm
45 minutes.
this was the city council after the work. I mean, like there was.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, I think it was.
They didn't talk about the workshop session and kind of debrief. I was curious.
We were all
what
there.
happened from that. Well, they were all here, but you didn't have a discussion where the other people had presented, right? I mean, to me, it was almost a shame that we didn't hear the Carver County people more, because it seemed like they had more direct stuff to offer. But what have we done with all that information?
Yeah, there was a ton on that needed how does it written?
Consent agenda.
There was a lot on the consent agenda, and I was concerned. I'm like, I'm going to be here a very long time, and they just were like consent, and I was like, and then they're like, okay, adjourned, and I was just like, okay. So truly, there was nothing significant to share that day.
Commissioner Moore, Chair, members of the commission, that was by design, knowing that the workshop was going to be 2.5 hours long. So it was intentionally tried to keep as much regular business off of the agenda for the regular meeting as possible and shuffling things around. So, but Commissioner Moore, you did pick a great meeting too.
So what has happened from the workshop?
Commissioner Schwarting, chair, members of the commission, we've actually had one direct conversation connection with one of the panelists who's potentially got an opportunity, affordable housing related opportunity for the city. So they reached out to us directly after that ULI panel, just based on what they had heard from the city council and the planning commission and the things they were looking at doing. So that's one direct benefit of that, is we've got something potentially in the very early discussion stages that would be in aligned with that affordable housing discussion. We also internally, as in staff, we've gotten a bunch more resources from the ULI panel, and our intention is in the first quarter of next year is to bring forward some additional direct takeaways from that meeting and some potential policy questions. You know, I think one of the takeaways from that meeting was that a lot of this affordable housing requires the city to provide a portion of the investment, and the city needs to have some policy
Can we spend
around
on a
that.
roundabout and that?
Right. I mean, that's the question though, right? I mean, if you really truly want to try to bring these more, non-market affordable type projects, it requires investment from the city, and you need to have policy around that and funding available to do that. And so those will be kind of the next steps that when we talk to the council.
Help me, I guess I don't totally understand the impact of the affordable housing either on a score. What's the direct impact if we don't have enough? Is there a financial impact?
Commissioner Schwarting, chair, members of the commission, to date, there really hasn't been much of one. So the Met Council creates affordable housing goals, and there's not really a penalty towards not hitting those goals. There's not really anything they can do as a recourse to not hitting those goals. Where it does potentially impact you is if you're seeking grant funding from the Met Council, and if your affordability score is low, that then in turn equates to a lower score on your grant applications.
I was just in Bozeman, Montana, and my son was pointing out this housing development that had affordable housing in it, and the housing market is just exploding in Bozeman, Montana, because you can work remote. Why not live there? And so affordable housing there could be $500,000, but basically in this development, there's a few homes that were set aside as affordable. They'll have the same style and design, but they're almost like a tiny house. Theirs is extremely small, which gets back to affordable housing is at some of our standards on square footage, and you need to have some flexibility there to help create affordable housing, but that we, the city, don't have to spend money for that. We enable a developer to build that.
Can I ask an unrelated question that I've just been thinking about in regards to the downtown west development? So I think like we saw Cross Anderson come through with an apartment thing. Then we see, Silvercrest maybe want to come in with the senior housing. Have we, and I know in the past, maybe 10 years ago, before 2008, the city did a request for proposals for developers to do master planning of downtown west. And I know there were some really pretty good, ideas around those master developments and what could be there, and some pretty good developers. However, with the recession, I think most of that just went away. And I'm wondering have we considered that it might be time to do that again? Because what I'm concerned about is this piece parcel development of downtown west, and then all of it's gone, and we still don't have what we really want, which is a grocery store or a pharmacy or parking. So I'm wondering if there's a way to maybe be proactive instead of reactive.
And meanwhile, we aren't going to get retail in every building. We're not.
No,
You
we're
can't
not.
get everything. You can't get everything, because if you try to get everything, you'll get nothing.
Commissioner Murray, chair, members of the commission, that master plan was actually revised in 2019. DJR Architects, and you've probably seen it at one point in time, just kind of in passing, but that master plan was revised, and then the feasibility study that was done by Kimley Horn in 2020 took that master plan and put some actual preliminary engineering behind it, and that's where we've gotten that overlay that you've seen before that kind of shows the buildings along the ridge with the roadway, and then kind of that more blank phase 3 area in the center. And then as part of that vision, I think you're still spot on. The city anticipates that being a mixed use, residential, high density residential, commercial, senior housing. God forbid, everybody would love to see a grocery store there. I think that there's still hope that at some point as part of that phase, that's going to be there. But what we're seeing, such as the Kraus-Anderson proposal, and I think if, a senior building becomes the next building after the Kraus-Anderson proposal, whether through this development or some other means, I think that that's still in line with what that vision is for the site and where we kind of see it going. As you all know, the council does have a desire to see commercial be incorporated into those residential as in addition to potentially some standalone commercial as part of phase 3 closer to Highway 5. But as Commissioner Moore mentioned, it's difficult to get that in every building. So those are the things that this group, the city council, as these proposals come through, has to weigh. How is it fitting within the vision? Is this fit within our why do I keep wanting to say division? Within our vision, does it not? If it does, great. Now we checked this off the box. What are we looking for next? So the next group that comes in, this is what we want to have. So
Are we going to be invited to that conversation? We will definitely have a seat at that conversation, right?
Yeah, Commissioner Moore, members of the commission, correct. When so the preliminary development agreement with Kraus-Anderson essentially puts that portion of the land under contract with the city because the city owns it. They'd still be required, or will still be required, to go through a preliminary plat process, a final plat process.
How many acres is that? Just trying to get a visual of what.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head because it potentially also incorporates some private property, at least is what they're proposing now. So I don't recall exactly what the total acreage is and what the split was between the city's piece and private property. But yes, it will go through same type of process, preliminary plat, final plat, both groups.
And if the houses are included, this is going to be the most eastern portion of the site.
This would be the most eastern portion, correct?
And I think for most grocers, they're looking for parking. That's the problem with the borough site, was they didn't have the parking, so no one could go in there because they have minimums that they want to meet. So I'm just wondering, if we really want a grocery store in Victoria, do we then proactively talk to the smaller grocery stores and the Aldis of the world and try to actually be proactive? Do cities do that?
They know the site, though. They're familiar.
I know, but people sometimes, don't think, and maybe it's not only the ones that are familiar, because there are some grocers outside of the city. Northern grocers that might consider coming.
Potentially.
Commissioner Murray, Chair, members of the commission, I don't want to cause too much excitement or false hope, but just to answer your question, there are some conversations going on currently related to the downtown west site and some potential grocers. Again,
I didn't know that. I wasn't
very preliminary, don't want to cause any false hope, but there are some discussions
I
happening.
did drive 7 miles for a can of manwich the other day.
Manwich?
Yes, because my daughter wanted it. And I was like, that's a long way for a manwich.
That's hilarious.
Would be nice.
That defines the need.
Even if it's preliminary.
Very good. The city council meeting that I was at was the one that was on October 25th. And that was the one that was 45-minute meeting. They covered a whole bunch of routine business. Nothing major at all. One of the agenda items was to approve a temporary liquor license for St. Victoria Perry's family for the event that we had last night. And so that's government at its finest, that was approved. So The other items was the well number 5 that is being proposed and being studied, and funding to do the work, the consulting work on that was approved. So the other one was some road work on Sayer Lake for downtown West, and that needs some work. I think we would all probably agree with that. The other.
Quick question, is well 5 on south of Victoria Drive, like on the east? No, where exactly is well 5?
Commissioner Moore, members of the commission, well number 5 is the South Growth area well, so within, scheduled to be platted as part of the formerly Rolling Hills South, now Marsh Hollow development.
Okay.
Yep. The Highway 11 improvement in the south area also. There was a project for the railroad tracks and Marsh Lake Road intersection that was approved. And the solution to all, the discussion of a roundabout. A roundabout is the.
At Marsh Lake Road.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
So-
Chair, members of the commission, just to add on to that. So as part of that meeting, the city council did approve a JPA to authorize professional services for the area roadway improvements to County Road 11. Part of that will be studying whether or not a roundabout at Marsh Lake Road and 11 is something that's warranted at this point in time. There's been increased crashes in that location. Traffic is likely to increase as part of the development that's happening in the south. So that's not officially a roundabout, has not been approved, but that'll be part of what will be looked at as a potential. And it's one of the several millions of dollars worth of transportation improvements that the city is going to be looking to, or has part of its priority list over the next 20 years is that corridor. So that's when we talk about the cost for transportation projects and new things popping up. Those are the things that we kind of compete with ourselves as to. I don't know, Commissioner Schwarting, members of the commission, I don't know exactly how their breakdown is, but if there were a roundabout there, I think they typically go by leg, and the city would only have one leg of that roundabout, Marsh Lake Road. But I don't know exactly what the percentage breakdown is.
And then the final approval for Shores of Marsh Lake final plat. That was approved, and Marty and then the city attorney spoke on that topic. And that concluded the meeting 45 minutes later from the start. So a lot of material was covered. I would suggest those that are available, the city council meeting coming up on the 13th, I'm planning on attending, and follow up on this process here at the same time. So see how that goes. Anything else? Any other items to discuss? Christian?
I got nothing else.
Excellent.
Thank you for asking.
Yep, very good, very good. Well, hearing none,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Marty, anything?
so moved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting is adjourned. I think a productive